a trend. And during the pandemic, it appeared that everyone had a fiddle leaf tree, which meant that I had to have one too. A few weeks later, my husband and I walked into Costco, and there they were being sold right in front of us, and it was like a divine appointment. I had to have it. I brought it home, I nestled it into the corner of my living room, and I thought, how hard could this be to take care of? All plants need is a little bit of water, right? And so I would water it, and one leaf would fall, and I watered it again, and 2 leaves would fall, and before you know it, I was left with a bare tree. Now, at this point, I was convinced that if I just kept watering it, new leaves would sprout. It wasn't until a family member came over that said, "Hey, Kayty, what is with the stick in the pot of soil in your living room?" that I realized maybe, just maybe, the way that I was approaching this tree wasn't working. I came to find out that fiddle leaf trees are endearingly known as tree-nagers, known for their very intricate, very specific care instructions. At this point, you are probably hoping that I'm going to turn the script and say that I learned everything it took to bring this tree back to life, while in fact, I threw it away and I still have never bought another one again. But what I can say is that this tree actually ended up challenging me and teaching me a lot about my own life, my own relationships, and quite frankly, my own hospitality. I learned very quickly through this long process with my fiddle leaf tree that even though I was surrounded by people and often spent a lot of time at the table, I left these experiences feeling lonely, very frustrated, and craving belonging. So at this time, I realized that I needed a change for me and honestly, for us. For just a second, I want to look at the way that society frames us, sets us up to look at friendship in adulthood. In childhood, we are actually encouraged and valued to embrace community and creativity. However, as we shift into adulthood, there's this whole paradigm shift that happens away from creativity and community and on to independence and success. Now, during this process as a culture, we are incredible at achieving these 2 things, right? But when we leave behind the creativity and community, it comes at a cost. Now, for just a second, I want to step and look at the way that we approach hospitality as a culture. There have been amazing creatives that have gone before us and paved a way for the industry. They have created and established pillars that we follow in our gatherings in food, design, and relationships. They've done incredibly well. However, with social media really on the rise, there has been this overall narrative shift that has happened, a goal shift, if you will, giving us the overarching question, instead of, how does this make you feel? It has shifted to the question of, how does this make me look? Now, as we ask ourselves, why is friendship in adulthood so difficult for me? Or why is my hospitality not giving me the results I wish it would? It's important that we look at this formula that we're presented with. This formula of an emphasis on success and independence, and this overarching goal and question of, how does this make me look? And we expect these 2 to fuse together and birth meaningful connection, and it simply is just not possible. If we look at our gatherings tend to look a little bit like this. There is some kind of food, thankfully, an activity, and usually some small talk. We leave these events feeling full, but certainly not connected. And I'm here to tell you today there is a different way. There's a way to leave your gatherings in a way that makes you feel known, makes others feeling known, and that the gatherings have a sense of intention and purpose. It starts with what I call you go first hospitality. And just like with anything in culture that requires a shift or a change, it requires that some of us, hopefully all of us today, step out and say, I'm going to chart a new path, a new way. Now, I want to start by talking about the concept of friend chemistry, and specifically to answer the question, how do I make friendships in adulthood? And this is a very valid question, especially in our time and culture. We have to be very creative. Now, I want to talk about the dating scene just for a minute in this context, because when we're in that dating world, it's very obvious to us who we have chemistry with. I'm sure we can all agree. And I would like to invite you to think about friendship in this way too. There is a social chemistry that happens in adulthood that I think many of us ignore. We were taught at some point in life that during adulthood, it is inappropriate, maybe a little awkward, to invite someone to something that is outside of your direct social influence or social sphere. But I want to tell you through my own life, I have met and created some of my greatest friendships through people working out next to me at the gym, and most recently, my bank teller. And truthfully, what this has looked like, specifically in this instance, I love this girl. I saw her week after week as I was going to the bank, and we could tell we both acknowledged this kind of friendship chemistry that was happening. And eventually I learned, Kayty, you have to go first and ask, and it looked like this. I said, hey, I would love to hang out. And then you pose it with an activity. Say, what do you think about going to a vineyard next month? I have only been told no one time. 9 times out of 10, I have been met with an excitement and a yes. And to be totally honest with you, for anyone that's still cringing at the thought of this, they have always said, I recognize, I noticed the same thing, I felt the same thing too. So as we look at friendship in adulthood, and if anyone here is feeling lonely and feeling in need of that very thing, I would just implore you to identify these social cues as they come up in your life and to take those first steps. Now, the second thing that I think is important to address when we're talking about hospitality is a question I hear a lot. How do I spend more time with my guests? Now, this is important. This is critical because you are the conductor. You are of your whole event. All of the details follow your lead, and so your presence is critical. And so I want to talk about how to get you there, how to get you present-minded and actually present with your guests. And we're going to talk about 2 things, stations and systems. Systems, think of it like organization, but with a little bit more purpose. These are things that you implement in your house ahead of time, before you even have a gathering on the calendar, so that when the gathering comes, you are ready. And it can look like having all of your platters together in one place, so that when Aunt so-and-so says, how can I help you? You could say, oh, get one of those platters right over there, and you can accept help with ease and without embarrassment. It can also look like having all your baking supplies on one shelf in the pantry, so when you're baking that cake super last minute, you don't have to give it a second thought. Now, the second thing is something I get very excited about, and that's stations. This is a way that you get to help your guests help themselves. All of us are looking for a break when it comes to hospitality. And whatever I could do to get you sitting at that table, I'm going to do just that. So it looks like this. A hot drink station. Instead of serving 25 cups of custom coffee at your next party, on your island, on your kitchen table, you can create or set up your hot water, your coffee, your tea, and all the fixins so that the guests can customize their own experience and you're not serving them all evening. One more that people always laugh at, but I think is incredible, and you often won't think of, is about a station in the bathroom, a station to make it embarrassment-proof for your guests. And so if you run out of things or they run into a sticky situation, they don't have to approach you. Everything is in order, and you are off the hook. I hope that as some of you are hearing this, you almost feel a sigh of relief that this is a permission that is available to you. Now, on a little bit of a deeper and more personal note, the very thing that changed and transformed my own friendship and hospitality and relationships was my own work with vulnerability. In my early 20s, we were part of a new community. My husband and I moved across the world to Thailand, working with people that we had never met or known before. And this was a pretty bold statement that the person said, but I'm so glad that they did. And they said, hey, Kayty, you are very hard to get to know. And my whole life, I've been told that I am an extrovert. I come across as very bubbly, very friendly, and I was taken back by it, and then I took it to a counselor for the first time in my life. This started for me a long process of counseling that, frankly, I haven't ended yet because it's creating so much freedom in my life. Now, what this did was this allowed me to rewrite the way that I approached my relationships in the past, to work through relational hurt, and to make room in my own life for vulnerability and connection that I didn't even realize wasn't there before. You see, I think that this is work a lot of us would benefit from. However, there is a stigma around it that keeps us from going there. And for many of us, you actually are great hosts and could be the next Martha Stewart, but this is the missing key, the heart work, the hard work. Now, in our culture, we are taught that hosts should be prim and proper, right? That's a message that's kind of expressed to us on repeat. However, prim and proper hosting and meaningful connection are like oil and water. They simply cannot exist together. And so 2 other ways that we can set this example for our guests, because your guests will follow your lead, is when you are in this kind of situation and someone asks you a question to answer honestly. Instead of the, I'm fine, they're fine, it's good, I'm good, to answer more transparently, and people will follow your lead like a monkey see, monkey do effect. Another thing I'm very passionate about is breaking through small talk. This is a huge problem that we have as a culture, and I think a lot of us are scared to take the first step to break past it. But it can look like asking questions that are not nosy, but curious to your guests. This looks like identifying things in their life that they are expressing as milestones or things that are important to them. Identifying things like someone's parent being ill and diving into that a little bit further with them, or a business venture they're looking to start up, and asking questions that make them not just feel present, but seen. This goes a long way. Now, as we are talking about going first, I'm going to end with this point that I think is critical, especially for this time and culture. We have to commit to commitment and commit to consistency. We live in a culture of the open-ended invitation. And I feel like as I'm going to give this example, you can all think of a time and a person that this has happened with. But it looks like this. You run into someone at the Target parking lot, and you say, hey, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. We should go do that thing. And you don't know where the ball is, whose court it's in, who's supposed to ask, and a year goes by, and it never happened. Be the person that when these kinds of situations come up, you take out your phone, and you say, you know what? Here are actually 3 dates that work for me. I would love to make that happen. I promise it will be received in a refreshing way. Now, also, I want to bring it back to dating just one more time. I think this helps put the whole context of friendship in a new kind of like framework, a new light. When you leave a first date, both parties are left wondering, how did that go? Are we going to do that again? And the only way to reach a resolve is communication. And so I am here to tell you on repeat with all of this. It is not weird, it is not strange, it is necessary to send a text afterwards that says, hey, you know what? I really enjoyed that time tonight. You don't have to make it weird, but I really enjoyed it. That was so fun. Can we do that again next month? People are craving a place to belong and community and consistency. Guys, I'm here to tell you, in all seriousness, wrapping this all up, your table has the unique ability to transform culture, to change lives, to create meaningful connection, unlike anywhere else in culture. Yet we are in a time in history in our society that is constantly disqualifying us, sending us messages that you better wait until those renovations are done before you open that door, or you better wait until you can learn to cook this better before you have people over. But I'm here to tell you that the cost of keeping your doors closed is too great. If I can leave you with one thing, I would say this. Whatever you do, please, 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 please don't wait. You are capable, you are ready, you are a good host. Thank you.